Welcome back to ReZero Anime Review, episode number 36. This is the 47th episode of the anime for ReZero, which is 48, excuse me. This is called Love That Even the Blood and the Entrails. Yeah, that is seriously the name of this episode. And this episode adapts from most of book 15. Covers roughly 4 freaking chapters. Like I remember damn, this covered a lot of the book in just one episode. But it does it pretty well. It's by far the first episode of the series to cover this much. Well, at least for this season. Usually, I think the last time I can think of they did this was back in the opening episode of the season. Now, there's 3 different things going on in this episode. 3 big set pieces, locations. You have the stuff going on in the mansion. You have the stuff with Emilia. Which there's a little bit of this episode, not much. And you also have Roswell versus Ram. Okay, let's first start with the Emilia one. Hers is simply this. Basically, it's not the portion of the episode. The episode opens up at the mansion. I want to talk about the Emilia one first because this one, in a way, kind of wraps up her plot thread in this particular book. Yeah, this wraps up her plot thread in pretty much the whole entire season and pretty much in the arc of the books themselves, where she's basically going through her final trial. And mostly put it just basically a lot of possible futures that she's seeing, which goes by pretty quickly, which it's a little more detailed in the book itself. I mean, yeah, it's probably expected they would cut this much out. And we see a possible future where we see a bunch of blood everywhere, and she's saying, "I hate you," to somebody. I don't think it's Subaru. No, maybe they're possibly teasing the 5th arc that comes with book 16. It's possibly teasing that here, but I don't know. And then, of course, right after she goes to that trial, she passes apparently, and then she encounters she goes to the area where we have the tea party. Man, this is familiar. Yeah, from the start of the season. Okay, go back to this. Yeah, this is not the other place we actually revisited the episode where it was revisiting something that was from a previous episode. This one, first time it's the actual Witch's Tea Party. Yes, and there's an addition here. I mean, it's the same area, except somebody put down some cookies. You know those cookies, those metal tins you see in the store? Yeah, someone put those down. And, of course, Emilia is confronted by the Witch of Wrath. I'm that's interesting. Did not expect her to show up. Oh yeah, and tell her not to turn around. And she's and she has her finger pointed at her head, it's a little gun or sword. I'm wow, that's something. She just at one point does turn around, just so the Witch of Wrath can shove Emilia's face into her chest. Also, she hints the fact she may have actually known Emilia's late mother. Which one? Don't know. And of course that she would love to come back with Tea Party of all the witches being there, which that'd be something quite nice. And they go through a door, which leads to the outside. It leads to Echidna's grave. She wondered who the heck is this woman is. It's Echidna. Yeah, it's Echidna. How? The dress. That's all I can tell. It's Echidna. And she basically just smashes the thing, and that's it for her. That's all she does the whole episode. Just goes to her trial, talks to Witch of Wrath for a bit. It's a good conversation. And, of course, wrapping up. And this pretty much wraps up her plot thread that's been going on since, the start of Book 10, basically, going through all the trials. Yeah, they're all completed now. Good. Now let's talk about one of the best bits of this episode. The action at the mansion. We have Elsa versus... Now, technically, the South Mansion is not after this episode. That's presumably going to wrap up next week, per se. Okay, so we have Elsa versus Garfield, which this takes up the almost, most of this episode, where they fight, constantly. They fight all over the mansion. He stabs her in the eye, and apparently she's got a healing factor that can explain why she's still alive. And it's revealed later on she's actually a vampire. Yes! Elsa is a vampire. I'm that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Yep. And they fight constantly, even to the point where we see that the mansion is on fire. If in case you're curious still how the heck this happened, yeah, this is something that well, let's just say something happened with when you have Subaru take on one of the man beasts, where it goes to the dining room where they were actually. Now this is another scene. This is a room that was a revisiting area, not from this season per se. This is a revisiting room from the last season, which is great. We get a chance to see this room again because I believe the last time they were in this room, officially in the anime, was in the previous season during the second arc. I believe it was actually when we have Roswell, Ram, and Amelia, and Subaru eating at this table, eating dinner with Beatrice. Yeah, great visiting for that. And they defeat the man beast by, well, he thought basically about using, well, looks to be like, he was probably supposed to blow it up, but it didn't work. So I was like, screw this, I'm dumping my oil, so I'm money on it. I'm like, really? You spent all your money on oil? Okay. I'm sure probably Roswell probably could use that. So, sets the beast on fire, and somehow this leads it to the whole mansion we put on fire. And of course, Subaru has got Rama in his back, and of course, hands up to Otto. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna get Beatrice. And Petra's worried, like he might hurt himself, like he probably will come back alive. But she has to take it out of there. Go through the escape route in Roswell's office. Meanwhile, though, we actually have, during the battle between Eliza and Garfield, we have Multi show up. Yes, Multi, the little girl who was around Petra's age. With her rock piggy, a.k.a. a frickin' rhino. With its horn cut off. And of course, well, the siblings basically battle. Well, Francesca battles Multi. Well, Garth battles Eliza for quite a while. And this is where it reveals, apparently because he loves reading, that's how he found out, oh yeah, you're a vampire, and the witch who basically made you a vampire is dead. Which one? I have no idea. Because I don't remember that portion of the book, but it probably did happen. Probably explain at a later point, but that's quite interesting to do this. And then she's like, maybe I'll give my backstory now about a guy who kidnapped me from my homeland and decided to... yeah, this guy apparently decided to strip her completely naked. I'm like, really? I mean, the way it looks, it seems like this guy was planning on raping her. Instead, she just basically grabbed a glass and killed him. And this apparently turned her into the psychopath she is. And then you have Garfield basically doing something like, okay, let's basically just growl, have a partial transformation about in the rock piggy, where he proceeds to rip the thing's head off by twisting it like freaking crazy and rip it right off its freaking body. And then he gets right on top of Ken. It almost looks like they're in a very sexual position where they're both biting each other's necks, like Garfield's biting into Eliza's neck and Eliza's biting into Garfield's neck. This lasts for a little while, and I'm like, Garfield, aside from the bite, I think like, damn, you're on top of a smoking hot woman. I'm like, you lucky you lucky cat. Well, because they transform into a cat monster. Yep, and a couple times, basically, Multi looked like she'd been crushed. First time, the Eliza saves her. The second time, Francesca saves her, and she's completely naked. Yeah, she's like naked. They explain later on that she had to, well, shred her clothes in order to transform into this. Though it's the second time she's been in this form, because she actually was in this form, like, several episodes back. Though she apparently off-screen got killed, possibly by Eliza, one of the man beasts. I'm not sure which one it was. Though Petra was one who actually saw her transform into the creature. This happened during the first half of the season, mind you. And then how does Eliza finally get beaten? Garfield picks at the body of the rock piggy over his freaking head like this and smashes it on top of her. I'm like, wow, Garfield, you really wanted to kill this woman. And she's like, oh yeah, I love you. And he's like, before this, he's like, well, I already love a woman. I already got another woman. I've got my heart too. Ram. And she's like, that's fine. All I want is your insides. Because she's the bow hunter. And then, of course, she gets killed. I'm like, that's interesting. I'm glad the fact they didn't graphically show get crushed by a giant, like, rhino. That was quite nice. I mean, the blood was fine. Don't need to say body get crushed by a giant dead rhino. That's what it looks like to me. They call it a rock piggy. And that kind of wraps up that. And then we have Ram and Puck versus Roswell in a 2-on-1 handicap match where they took the bout outside of the Crystal Palace and they battle back and forth. And then Ram reveals, oh yeah, she's in love with Roswell, which is something I think from what I've heard that readers probably have knew about for quite a while. It's not all that surprising. It's surprising to Roswell, even though he has no feelings for Ram. He's in love with Kenda. For 400 years, love with the same woman. And they fight constantly. Puck goes giant size and tricks Roswell into believing he goes to his apocalypse form, but nope. He's like, I just got bigger! I thought that was kind of funny. And he takes out this false illusion. And then Ram proceeds to take off his shield and take his book. Yes, his gospel. I believe this is the one that Kidna gave him and the other one given by Beatrice. And then she's like, this is the root of all evil. And she throws the book in the fire that's around him. And then apparently we see like a blast up behind Ram. And that's when the episode ends. I got handed this episode. Really damn good. Loved it. Can't wait for next week's episode. I'm surprised we're getting really close to the end of the season. Yes. I mean, this is episode 48. It's presumed this season will be lasting basically 25 episodes. I would not be surprised if somehow they extend this by one more episode. Like, let's say, have the season end at episode 51. That would be shocking to say the least, especially since there are 3 weeks left this month. But given how the book... the way I look, I'm online, basically, like, if you wonder, like, how many chapters are left in the book, this episode, they cover roughly 4 freaking chapters this episode. What is really left? Well, basically you have 2 chapters, an interlude, the final chapter, and an extra. So, you could stretch this out by a couple more episodes. You can have one more episode. You can have the next episode cover, like, chapter 7 and 8. We'll probably finish up chapter 6. And I have the final episode cover the interlude. You could basically just finish this up by, if you want to have like another episode, you could, but it all depends. But yeah, not much else to say. If you're curious about how long the actual book is, it is. I read the book online. It's actually like a little over 300 pages. Let me look up and see here, because I have it downloaded on my phone. It is 276, even though online it says it is 370. 310 exactly. Yeah, 310 pages. So this is actually a little bit shorter than the actual line. Maybe the one I got basically cut out some, but basically it's a PDF of the actual book itself. Maybe also they cut some blank pages out, because one book I read, I think it was like Shiverfield Night, where like some pages like basically got half the page taken up by text, and you have like a blank page. Maybe that's that, or maybe there's an extra story they cut out here. It's possible. But yeah, that's it for particular review. My next view is a Comic Corner discussing 2 trades. One and both from Marvel Comics, but one of whom is the finale for Raiders Run for the book. Okay, this is the next video. Bye.